Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the next episode in our series of the quintessential bulletproof practice owner's manual for success. Hopefully, you appreciated the previous episode, took lots of notes, did some homework. Now, get ready to do some more work on your business. Get out pad and paper, and let's go. Hello, welcome to the Private Practice Owners Club, and we are into it now with episode number 9 of our private practice manual series. I always get it wrong. Private practice owners manual series. We've had 8.
Quintessential.
Yeah, exactly. Essential, the superlatives. We've had 8 thus far. We're in number 9 today. We've talked about a ton of topics as it pertains to establishing a well-rounded, well-established private practice. And highly recommend you go to those previous episodes. We've done plenty of them, so check them out. But back with me is Adam Robin. Thanks for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me here, man. Just grateful to be here.
All right. Yeah, because we're talking about something that you're an expert in today, and that is
Ooh, I don't know about
recruiting.
that.
Oh yeah, you're an expert in recruiting. I think if there's 2 experts I know in my life about recruiting for physical therapists specifically, well, you actually recruit for OTs and speech as well, but it's you and Will Humphreys. You guys have it dialed in. You know how to do it. You've hired how many people this in the past 8 months of 2024?
13.
13 providers, which to me is unheard of. I've heard nothing like that from other providers that I've talked to and worked with. So yeah, you know how to do it. And we purposefully did not include this in part 7, episodes 1 and 2, part 7, related to practice management and the general structures and the employee experience. This we left as a beast unto itself and deserves a full episode because there is a lot of difficulty when it comes to recruiting for providers. And I'm sure it's across the board, not just in PT, but OT, speech, and you name it, mental health. There's plenty of work that goes into recruiting. And it's something that as owners, we're not necessarily used to. We think that the one and only way to do it typically is just post an ad on Indeed, maybe have a student once a year or something like that. And if you're lucky, they join your team. But there's so much more to it. So I'm glad that I have you to really relay exactly all the things that you can do and should be doing if you're desperate for a provider, right? And this is something that you've spent a lot of time on, right?
Tons of time, man. It's a whole nother skill. And I think it's important to just highlight that this section is towards the end of the manual because it really is its own beast. And I've just having the mindset of how to set your practice up in a way that adds value to other providers
Mm-hmm.
is kind of step one, right? Building out that organizational structure and the training and the job descriptions and all that value. And now that you have that product all polished and it's really cool and nice, now it's like, let's promote it. Let's promote what we do and who we are and how we help people and how we help providers. And now you can kind of input all that into the recruiting system and, ideally find some people that can help you grow your company.
Yeah, and I would never say to hold off on hiring somebody simply because you don't have all those other steps done beforehand. But I would say if you were of a mindset to put the business first and actually had administrative time to work on some of those other things and get those established, you're further along in making that a valuable win-win for you and this new provider that you wanted to bring on the team, and their experience and their loyalty and thus the retention of them, I think, is in greater likelihood because you have the basics covered. You have the foundation set. You're clear about your values and your purpose and how you want things done. And you're clear as to the productivity numbers that you are expecting. And you've had those conversations with them and they know what's to expect. And an employee handbook is in place. I mean, all those things are nice. They're not absolutely necessary. I mean, I hired plenty of providers that stuck with me for a long time without that stuff. It just makes the experience that much more easy for you and enjoyable for you. It sets you apart as an employer when the provider sees you have those
Mm-hmm.
things before they come on to your company. And, but I will say this, you don't have to have it, but if you want to grow and scale, which will be our next episode, those things are pretty necessary. I mean, you absolutely have to have those pieces in place if you wanted to grow and scale successfully.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it gives you something to believe in, right? Like once there's the sense of pride that you as the owner can gain whenever you've seen something that you've worked so hard for and you've built and people are consuming on a regular basis and they're having success. And once you kind of feel that and you feel good about what you guys are doing, you can enter the market, the job market, the recruiting market with a lot more boldness and confidence and excitement, and you can attract people that align with that, right?
Definitely. I definitely believe that. Right. So where do you want to start when we're talking about recruiting? Where does someone says, I need a provider, and maybe their first intuition is to build out a job description for Indeed and then list all the qualifications of, hey, make sure you have a license, make sure you can type, make sure, I don't know, some of the basic stuff where you don't even need to put those things on a job description. But so where would you recommend people start?
So I think people need to start with building out your avatar, right? And it's
What is an avatar?
probably yeah, you should have an avatar, right? You should have an ideal characteristic or personality trait that you're looking for. Like, who is this person that you want to hire? Maybe even give them a name, give them a general demographic. What type of interests do they have? Where do they live? What type of patients do they like to treat? Why? Why did they become a PT? Right? Get inside the mindset of these people. And here's the thing: like, if you've done a lot of work on your purpose and values, you should be able to figure this out pretty easily. But just being able to put some language and some words to who it is you're trying to talk to is really, really helpful. And you can sprinkle that type of messaging, and you could speak to the person in your job ad and your email campaigns and your social media outreach, right? So starting with your ideal candidate, building out that profile of what do they like to hang out? What are their interests? What are their hobbies? Are they married? Are they not married? Do they have kids? How long have they been a PT? What types of things excite them? That's where I would start.
And Will Humphreys noticed that if you are clear on that avatar, then another question you can ask is, what are their watering holes? So where are they going to live and see your message? Yeah, it could be Indeed, but would they be more likely to be on Facebook, or would they be on Instagram? Would they be on TikTok versus LinkedIn? Versus, I mean, where are you going to find these people? And so being clear on that avatar actually guides you a little bit as to not only to where to put that ad, where to post that information. Like, this is the type of person that I would ideally work with us, but also, what do they want to hear? What are they looking for? If you know some of those things, if you know some of their hobbies and their likes and their dislikes and their ages and maybe even children, if they have them, what do they want to hear in an ad that would make them interested?
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of goes into the next kind of topic, which is, well, before I kind of get into the buckets of the recruiting system, what I like to tell people, kind of rewind, go back to the 4 buckets of marketing, right? And marketing and recruiting are so similar, right? You're just talking to two different. With your marketing program, you've got your avatar, you've got your buckets of marketing, and you're trying to communicate with them value of how you can help them, how you can improve their quality of life, how you can improve their life in general, help them reach their goals. Just scratch out the word marketing, put the word recruiting. The buckets change just a little, but the strategy doesn't, right? You're communicating to that person, and you're trying to just help them understand who you are, how you can help them reach their goals,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can communicate in a way that touches the things that are most valuable to you because I understand you. And I'd love to have a conversation about potentially working together, right? So marketing program and recruiting program, very, 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 very similar.
Yes. To use your phrasing, pull out your pad and paper,
Mm-hmm.
get your pen, and at the top of your pad, you're going to say the 5 buckets of marketing. Underneath that, the first thing is going to be an avatar. You're going to spend a few minutes, however long it takes, to get really specific as to the type of person that you want to see. Put a name to them, like you said, gender, age, family status, hobbies, likes, interests, what kind of certifications you might like them to have, what kind of personality traits do they want to have? Do you want them to have? List out your values and make sure that's apparent in your ads and whatnot, and that these people would fall into those values and be aligned with them. And then after that, we can start listing 1 through 5, the 5 buckets of recruiting, right? Just like we did with the 4 buckets of marketing.
That's right. Absolutely.
So what's number 1?
Bucket number 1. It's going to be everybody's favorite. It's the easiest one. It's the most obvious one. Job ads.
Oh, we're actually going to use them, right?
We're going to use them.
You might as
right?
well.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, listen, I don't have statistics to back this up, but people go on Indeed, they go to monster.com, they go where the jobs are posted to look and see who's hiring, what's available, right? So we want to be there, right? We want to make sure that we're there, and we want to not only make sure that we're there, but we're posting our ad in a way that communicates our purpose, communicates our value, and communicates to the avatar in which we're trying to attract. All right. So writing out that job ad in a very unique way is really, really important. And my kind of one-liner is that the quality of your ad is going to be measured by the emotional response that you invoke inside the reader. Right. So you want to speak to their emotions. You want to speak to their pain points. You want to speak to their desires. And when you can do that well, you can call forth, if you will, that person that really aligns with who you are and who you're trying to get to join your team.
It sounds like you're not necessarily, and I think the default for most owners is to highlight what an amazing company that I have. I have this amazing company, and you'd be lucky if you have these traits to be a part of it. Whereas I think the wording that you're implying is more about, hey, are you a person that likes X, Y, and Z? Do you believe in these things? If this is what you're looking for, if you're looking for this type of environment, these are the people that would thrive in our company. And I'd love you to send in a resume. Is that kind of what you're thinking when you're writing an ad in those spaces?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the job ad, the point of the job ad is to get a resume, right? And people buy with emotion, they justify it with logic. If you can create the emotional desire for them to apply, to seek out, you could touch their curiosity in a way that says, hey, I don't know really much about the job quite yet, but I'd love to hear more about what they say. That's what you want to do with that job ad.
Gotcha.
Right. And so, yeah, absolutely. You don't want to write the job ad in a way that's like, here's all the criteria of why we're so cool. What you really want to do is write the job ad in a way that's like, hey, this is who we are. This is what we believe in. This is what we stand for. This is the mission that we have. This is what we're super committed to. And if any of those things sound of interest to you, we'd love to have a conversation with you. Click below to apply. Right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Cool. I love it. And I think haven't you shared examples of ads with people in the past? Would you be willing to share if people reached out to you?
Absolutely. Yeah. We've shared out a few people have reached out and requested a copy of the front desk or the patient care coordinator job ad. We have a few for, PTs and OTs and speech therapists. Just reach out to me, find me, shoot me a DM, and I'm happy to share that with you.
Awesome. Okay. So what's bucket number 2?
Bucket number 2, by the way, these aren't going to be necessarily in any order of importance. They're all important. They all have equal importance. But bucket number 2, the next watering hole is going to be social media, right? It's an easy, low-hanging fruit. You already have a marketing plan. You should be posting on social media regularly, right? And if you're doing that, all you have to do is change your message just a little bit and speak more provider instead of the patient, and use social media so that they can reach out to the candidates. And here's the thing. Number 1, you can post job ads there. That's one way you can use social media. Mm-hmm. You know what else you could do? You can friend request people, right? Friend requesting or connection requests are a part of social media, right? So here's an idea. Let's go to Facebook or LinkedIn and look up all the physical therapists in the area and friend request them, right? Like send them a friend request, connect with them. Here's another cool thing you could do. You could actually send them a DM, a direct message. You could start a conversation with them. Hey, Nathan, saw you were a PT in the area. We've never had an opportunity to connect. Would love to learn more about what you're doing and see if we can collaborate and explore opportunities and ways that we might be able to support each other. How long have you been practicing? Right. So using that social media and getting and searching for your candidates, finding them and sending them messages, starting conversations, building or authentic relationships online is huge. So you definitely want to use social media like that.
Have you found any particular medium does better than another in social media, whether it's LinkedIn versus Facebook versus any others? There's also Handshake, I guess. And
yeah, there's Handshake. I know that some people have had success on Reddit. I don't really use those. I'm not saying you can. I know that you can. The ones that I use, I just use LinkedIn and Facebook. What I like about LinkedIn is that it has a great search feature, so you can search and find candidates easily. Mm-hmm. The challenge that we have with LinkedIn is that the response rates tend to be a little lower. Right. People don't go on LinkedIn to chat. Right. They're typically on a professional level. It's maybe something they check once a month or so. Facebook is a little more conversational, so that if I can find a physical therapist on LinkedIn, I could find you. I could connect with Nathan Shields. Oh, wow, I want to connect with him. I can go straight over to Facebook, input your exact name into Facebook, find you on Facebook, friend request you, and then I can maybe even start a conversation on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Got it.
So that's how you can use those two platforms.
Okay. What's number 3?
Third bucket.
Yep.
Schools and universities. Right. Guess what they do every year? Graduate students. And guess what students are looking for? Jobs. So, okay. Right. Okay. So it's starting to understand, wow, hey, if you're not involved in the schools, you're not recruiting. You're missing a huge bucket, right?
Right.
Here's the thing. Those students, they mentorship. They want to connect with people. They want to hear from you. They want to learn more about they don't know. They're babies in this brand new world, and they're looking for information. And you know what? The faculty for these programs, they want support. They want people and outside vendors and companies to come in and provide value to their students. They want to provide a positive experience to their class. So what a great opportunity to create a win-win, a win for you and the company, for your patients, a win for the students, and a win for the university. Go in, provide some value, attend the career day events, do the guest lectures, accept the students, provide internships, set up those relationships. And if you do that with a handful of schools, and maybe even cooler if they all graduate their class at different times of the year, maybe these two over here graduate in the fall, these two over here graduate in the spring, you got a watering hole that kind of feeds you students every year.
Right. Yeah. And there's a bonus element in there that Will really came up with that I thought was ingenious was he provided practice interviews for soon to be graduating PT students. So he said he would go to the career fair. He would offer to provide these practice interviews to give them insight on how they presented themselves and how they could better present themselves. So it was almost like I'm giving you a little bit of something, but at the same time, he was actually interviewing the students to see which ones really stand out. Mm-hmm. And he would be able to continue the conversations with those that really stood out. So I thought that was an ingenious way that he was able to also to provide value, but also filter out and use that as a recruiting tool as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the main things that I like to do with schools are, number one, find out when the career fairs are. They typically will do a career fair either virtually or in person every year to the graduating class. Mm-hmm. Sign up, attend it, set up a booth, collect some resumes, go every year, right? Number two, make sure that you have a student placement program built into your facility, into your clinic. a productive one where we're accepting students every year. So you're evaluating therapists, your providers are accepting at least one student a year. Ideally, those who are from or willing to move to the area in which your clinic is and are interested in working in the setting in which your clinic is, right? And then the third thing is set up a guest lecture or provide those mentorship opportunities, either personal development, professional development. We do lectures on marketing. We do lectures on sales. We do lectures on opening up clinics, private practices. You can do job interviews. You can do all kinds of fun stuff. So if you set those three things up with your local universities, then you should be able to get your hands on a couple students.
Gotcha. Okay. What do you got for number 4?
Number 4 is going to be your network, right? Your network. So but Nathan, I don't have a network. Yes, you do.
You do.
Yes, you do. Go to your phone and download every single one of your contacts in your phone. Go to all your social media accounts and download every single social media connection that you have. Go to your emails, all your past emails, and download all their emails. You probably have a list of like point, right? So if you have those people, you want to make sure that they know that you're hiring. B, that you're communicating, like you want them to know like the types of people that you're hiring, and that you could really use their help in helping you find an amazing person who fits this type of criteria, right? This type of avatar. So setting up some email, text message, or phone call outreach to your network, to your influencers and stars is a big part of it.
Yeah, especially if you're part of any youth recreation leagues, church membership, like CrossFit members, you're a realtor, your landscapers. These are the people that have, oh, my brother-in-law is going to physical therapy school right now back in Tennessee, or I've got so-and-so who, they haven't been a PT for a while, but they're kind of looking for a part-time gig. That's how you find some of these people. And if they like them, more than likely, then they'll refer them to you. And birds of a feather kind of flock together. So they usually know who would fit with your personalities. And so you definitely want to leverage your network. And when you bring up network, not only the people that we know, but we have access to other people's networks. And so when I say that, talking about your state board has an entire list of all the licensees in your state. And depending on the state, you can gain access to all of their not all their contact information, but at least maybe an email address, right? That you can start emailing the licensees in your state about an opening in your clinic. And that's something that's really simple. And the emails don't necessarily have to be, hey, I've got a job. It's like, hey, this is what I'm seeing in the industry in our state right now, or this is what we're dealing with and how we're overcoming it. This is something we did in our clinics in the past month, and we thought it was really cool. Are your clinics doing the same thing, right? I think one of Will's more popular emails that he did to the licensees at one time was like, is the grass really greener on the other side? Maybe it isn't sometimes, maybe it is, but it's worth looking and peeking over the fence. And he got a lot of response from that. But if you take the time to generate, 4 to 6 emails and you send them out once a month, I mean, you're done and just automatically send them out every month for 6 months. You're done with that part of it, right? And it's a way to get engagement, get responses, and keep in touch with the other licensees in your state.
Oh yeah, I knew that this was working when I would start going to the career fairs. And I would meet some of the other owners, and I would meet some of the other vendors that were there. And I would introduce myself as Adam Robin, and they would say, oh yeah, I know you. I've been getting your emails. Yeah. Right. And I'm like, oh yeah, the emails are working. Right. So like for me to just say my name and for them to remember me, to know me, like just imagine the authority and the power that gives you. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm just a regular guy sending emails. Right. And so like, yeah, really, really powerful thing.
Yeah, definitely. So there are other networks that you can tap into. Your alumni network at school, right? Tap into that. Tap into your licensees. Tap into your if you're part of a certification, if you have an OCS or something like that, maybe you have access to the other OCSs around. Who knows? Facebook groups. Make sure you're in the Facebook groups that are local to you, especially, and make sure you're posting there. But there's plenty of opportunities to leverage other networks as well outside of just the people in your contact list.
That's right.
All right. Are we on to number 5? Is this the last bucket?
Last bucket, man. The team. You know what's cool about A players? They typically hang out with other A players.
Totally.
Right? So listen, if you're a practice owner or a therapist and let's say you've been a therapist for 5 or 10 years, you probably had a few jobs, right? How many people are in your contact list of like past PTs that you've worked with, past bosses right? Well, guess what? Every person on your team has that same list. They have all of those past bosses and those past PTs and those past colleagues that they worked with. And some of them they probably really like, or maybe it's like their past students that they went to school with, classmates, right? So doing that internal recruiting, right? So instead of the internal marketing, but that internal recruiting and building out that system of incentivizing your team to help you grow the team.
Yeah. What's your incentive program right now?
Now we do $1,000 for a placement for a evaluating provider.
Mm-hmm.
So a PT, OT, or speech therapist. And I think it's maybe around $700 or so for an assistant, and then maybe like $300 for an admin or something along those lines, right? But we keep that in front of our team, right? So especially if we're hiring, but even when we're not hiring, we're gonna company. Everybody in our company is going to get either a monthly or a quarterly email. And it's like, hey, by the way, don't forget, if you have anybody in your network who would be interested in having conversations about employment opportunities, reply to this email and you can get $1,000 bonus, right? Making sure you're reminding your team of that. Bringing that up in the team meetings is important as well if you're having weekly team meetings.
Yeah, I think ours was very similar. We spaced it out a little bit. So $500 if they're with us for 90 days and another $500 at the end of the year kind of thing. Or maybe it was more, maybe it was even $1,000 if they stay with us for a year, because if they made it a year with us, then it was a pretty solid hire.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had the similar incentives. And you brought up a good point. Like, how often should people be on the lookout for providers and new team members?
All the time, right? I never really made any type of significant traction with our recruiting program until I was completely out of treatment for the most part. And I was dedicating full days and weeks to building out a recruiting system. Like when I went all in and I decided that I was no longer going to focus on marketing to patients and trying to attract patients to my clinic, but I was going to try to build a system that attracted candidates to our practice. That's when we started growing. That's when we started hiring people. And, a lot of people are like, Adam, how do you hire therapists? And I know it's kind of a boring answer, but the answer is I just focused on it, right? I just decided it was important, and I decided that was the most important thing. And I just spent all my time doing it for about a month or two, or however long it took me, Now that it's built out, I can kind of ramp it up and ramp it down based on the needs of the practice. If I'm really, really hurting from somebody, well, guess what? I'm spending a lot of time recruiting. But even when I'm not actively looking to replace somebody or actively looking to fill a position, I'm still going to spend a small amount of time every week building relationships or nurturing key relationships of those people who are kind of on the bench looking to maybe somebody I can hire in the future. Because you never know when you're going to get that resignation letter, right? You never know.
Right. And that puts you really in a place of power when you have that resume in your back pocket of the next team member, right? But I want to get to a point that you brought up at one time, that we had a consultation with a PT owner, and he was asking about recruiting because that was his big bugaboo. That was his pain point. He really needed to find a provider. And you told him, and I remember this distinctly, that recruiting is all about mindset. And what did you mean by that?
Back to the beginning of the conversation of like, you know, well, there's two things. Number one, I had to realize and recognize that what we were doing in our company and what me and my team were building was something worth getting excited about. That it had value, and that we and I personally and professionally had some, right? Other people. Like I felt like I could genuinely help them professionally, personally. I could mentor them. And it wasn't until I kind of, I guess, developed that level of personal self-value that I felt confident about like, hey, like you should definitely think about working here. It's like, cause we're pretty cool. Like what we're doing here is really exciting. Like I think you should consider it. But I wasn't born with that. And I would assume that most PTs and rehab professionals aren't either. We're more like self-sacrificing, and we're more like, oh, I don't want to be bold and confident. I'm right. They're more, we tend to be more passive in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just kind of like that mindset that held me back. So that's the first mindset piece, really realizing that, that what we were doing was important. And then the second thing was that the needle wasn't going to move until I spent the time that needed to be spent on moving it. You can't just like post a job ad and send a few text messages here and there to your network and think that you're recruiting, because you're not. You're shooting at the hip. You're an amateur, right? And it's not going to get you where you want. Like you're going to have to decide that I'm going to have to write the check and step out of treatment for a month or two and build this recruiting system and hire a VA or hire some admin team to help me and get this ball rolling. And then whenever I decide that that's important and everything else doesn't matter right now, then you'll start hiring therapists. Right. So those are the two big shifts that it takes.
Yeah. I noticed the same thing as we were recruiting is when we started changing our language, first of all, from, oh, it's hard to find a provider right now to, you know what? Any provider would be lucky to work with us right now. And there's plenty of providers out there that could. Once we started changing the wording around our recruiting and spent dedicated time on recruiting practices weekly on a regular basis, not just one-off ads and then follow up a month later to see how the ad went, right? But actually spent time weekly doing recruiting things was when recruiting started changing over. Like we really started to see it move the needle and saw great prospects come to us and into our doors because we changed the message, we changed our thought processes, and we actually dedicated time to it. And a lot of it had to do exactly with what you laid out in the 5 buckets of recruiting, having a recruiting plan. So we talked a lot in the marketing section of our Practice Owner Manual series about having a marketing plan. In the same vein, you have to have a recruiting plan. And at some times you're more involved in that recruiting plan than you are in others, depending on the need for a hire. But we were, number one, like you said, always hiring. Number two, we were always had an ad out. We were always looking for people who aligned with this, because it's rare that the optimal person is suddenly available at the exact same time that you need them. In fact, if they're a really good rock star provider, they're probably very happy where they're at right now and don't think that they need you. Mm-hmm. And so you always have to have your message out so you can capture them when they are available, when they have a fleeting moment of, I wonder what it is like on the other side. And they come across your ad and now they're interested, right? So it just like recruiting, or just like marketing, you have to have that recruiting strategy. And sometimes you're not in all 5 buckets all the time. Your strategy could be, I'm going to focus on these 2 buckets for this period of time. And the other 3, if those 2 buckets aren't working, then let's start working on those other 3, depending on my avatar and where they live and how I'm best suited to find them. but it is possible to have your fingers into each bucket going all the time. But it also is possible to be headstrong and moving forward in one or two buckets more than the other three.
Yep. I love it. I love it. And I think the key here is to, you know, zoom out a little bit, right? And try to see this effort as a system that works for you. And in the beginning, you're the person like turning the wrenches and getting the ball, you're pushing the ball and you're making it go. But that's not the long-term goal, right? It's not even, doesn't have to be a long-term goal. It could be a medium-term goal of like, you're just doing this today, but that doesn't mean you're doing it forever, right? You should not be the one that's writing the job ads forever. Like you need to train somebody on your team how to write the job ads and start being like a true department of recruiting that has its own meeting rhythm, right? You have a recruiting meeting rhythm. You have your recruiting SOPs and policies and procedures with the buckets, all the 5 buckets outlined. And how do we write a job ad? How often do we post on social media? How many new friends do we want to attract on social media? How many schools do we have relationships with? Like have all those SOPs dialed in and key statistics that are really, really important. And then once you kind of build all that out, you can start finding other people on your team to help you with it, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you got a couple therapists on your team who can help you recruit some and can attend the career fairs and you can enroll your team in helping you with that, right? Mm-hmm. Another just amazing way to provide so many opportunities and value for your team, right? So build out the system, hire some great employees and enroll the team to help you. And yeah, you should be able to hire as many therapists as you need.
Right. And I think that bleeds into our next episode very easily, because that's what you're going to need in order to grow and scale. You're going to need more providers. You're going to need a recruiting system, not just recruiting strategies, but a recruiting system, so that there can be a consistent flow of resumes across all the positions in your company on a regular basis. And you're culling the very top and maintaining the A players, because a mentor of mine liked to say, the best way to get rid of A players is to justify keeping C players. So the longer you keep those C players on board, you're just going to piss off the A players. And it really helps when you have a recruiting system to know that you can fall back on that to replace them as needed.
Yep. I love it, man. I think that's great. You know, as you envision this manual, it's like you've built out your playbook of how your company is structured, how it markets itself, the sales process, you know, how you lead the front desk, the key statistics of the financial management that you have. You kind of have all that built out. And now you've got a recruiting system where you can find and attract top quality people who align with your purpose and values. You can onboard them and train them effectively. You can put them in the right seat on the bus. You can hold them accountable. You can provide a great employee experience. Now it's time to think about what it looks like to actually scale your practice. Right now, you've got all the pieces, and you're actually sitting in that role as CEO. So it's a really exciting place to be.
Right, and that's a good place to finish up here, because if you've gotten this far and you've listened to 9 episodes of our practice owners manual series, laying the foundation for a really successful private practice, then you'll understand, and I talked about it in the last episode, all of these things are great to have, but they can be like drinking from a fire hose. And that's where coaching becomes so important, to have a coach that can keep your mind on the prize, keep your focus on the goals, and tell you, maybe recruiting is not your most important thing right now. Maybe your most important thing is to focus on the front desk, because your cancellation rate is 40%, right? And even though you think I need another provider, well, maybe that's where that third party perspective provides so much value. And we provide free consultations. You can go to the website, ppoclub.com, and you can book a call with Adam, and he'll do a free, no obligation consultation with you for 30 to 45 minutes to really speak to your pain points in your organization. And so I highly recommend it. 99.9% of the guests that I have here that I've interviewed over the past 6 years on the podcast have had a coach to guide them and thus become successful to the point where they stand out and I want to interview them. So if you don't have a coach right now, highly recommend it. And if you've listened to my podcast long enough and don't have a coach right now, shame on you, because that's all I've said for the past 6 years. So I highly recommend it. I mean, you can reach out to
Shame
me.
on you.
Shame on you. Shame. I mean, these are no obligation calls, and you have to have a coach. And to think that you can do it alone is, man, come on. You've got, your ego's getting in the way at that point. There's so much more to learn from people who have been there, done that, that you don't have to suffer through the muck and the mire to learn what it is to be a successful owner in the private practice. So highly recommend you reach out to us. But anything else you want to share, Adam?
No, I think that wraps it up. Yeah, reach out to me, Adam at ptoclub.com if you have any questions.
Cool, man. All right. Next episode, growth and expansion. Let's go.
Let's rock.
All right. See you, man.
See ya.